Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to do a season review of Westworld Season 3, an overall review of what went on in the season, the good points, the bad points, where it worked and where it didn't work as well, and the potential going forward for the recently announced Season 4. So this is going to be spoiler filled, so if you haven't caught up with the season or haven't watched the finale, then I advise you to stop watching now, go back to the season, catch up, and then come back to this review after, because we're going to go into specific details as to what went on. So the beginning of this season, we picked up shortly after the events of season 2, which, as you remember, Dolores had managed to escape the Delos park and was seemingly hell-bent now on destroying the human society, or destroying the humans responsible for the setup of the Delos park, because they were the ones, of course, who used and abused the hosts from the previous 2 seasons. So that's what we began in the opening season, the premiere episode, where we saw Dolores at a man's house, and we learned that this man was one of the main shareholders of the Delos park, who by now had come into the public knowledge because of the outbreak of the host and the violent event that went on there. So the shareholders are nervous about how dangerous the hosts are and can they still be controlled. So as Dolores goes to this house and she extracts information from this man, we learn of a company called Insight, and this is owned or co-owned by Liam Dempsey, who was the son of the father who created this company, and Dolores has built up a relationship with him in order to set about her quest and uncover the truth about what is running society. And we learn that what is running society is this artificial intelligence called Rheoboam. And the setup of this artificial intelligence is that it assesses people's abilities and capabilities and assigns them to whatever role or whatever job it deems them most suitable for. So everybody's kind of under this set program. And the concept behind this is, if you can control somebody and unlock their true potential and get them to maximize their full ability, then the world would be a much better place for it. So that was the idea behind that. So that's what Dolores, we see in the early episodes, she wants to uncover the secrets of this artificial intelligence and get it under control. We also have Bernard, who we knew also escaped from the end of season 2, and he's trying to integrate himself into society on, and we later on find out that he has a control switch which he uses to kind of check himself to make sure that Dolores can't influence him, and it's kind of a way to make sure that he can kind of control the more violent tendencies, if you like, and he can turn it off and on, and it puts him into some sort of attack mode or more aggressive mode when he turns it off. And again, this is a way to make sure that he can keep himself within check on here. We also catch up with Charlotte Hale, who, as we knew at the end of season 2, was a host version, and she is under control of Dolores, and she is now the CEO of the Delos, and her main role to begin with was to initiate the construction of more hosts that Dolores can use under her control to see her plans come to fruition. We catch up later on with William, the man in black, and we see him at the beginning. He's really disorientated and all over the place, kind of true to the nature of the character throughout this whole season. And we later on find out that he gets kind of tricked or coerced into signing over the main control over his company, and he gets transported into some sort of mental facility, and we see him, various scenes of him talking to himself. He's being experimented on, and his main focus is to kind of snap out of this disorientation that he's under and stop Dolores from her plan and basically save the world as well. We catch up later with Liam Hemsworth's character called Stubbs, who was one of the Delos operatives in the first season, but we find out later on that he's a host, and he comes together to work with Bernard as they later on realise what Dolores is up to, and they plan on stopping her throughout the season. We catch up with Maeve, who had an opportunity to leave the Delos Park, I believe, at the end of season 2, but she chose not to because she wants to reconnect with her daughter. I'll speak more about that in a minute. But in order to find this connection, she has to hunt down Dolores, and she's given this task by one of the main characters of the new season called Serac, and we later on find out that he really is the one in control of the Rheoboam and the Insight Company, and he wants Maeve to hunt down Dolores because he believes that Dolores has the host data that was used to create and control the host, and if he can somehow obtain this host data, it will help him strengthen the hold of the artificial intelligence and have a better control of the people and society within the current world that we live in on here. So that's kind of the main setup here. Of course, we had the newest addition, which was Caleb, played by Aaron Paul, and he was supposedly meant to be the human face or the human perspective within this show. And we learn that Caleb is an ex-soldier or ex-marine. He's suffering from PTSD and he's trying to integrate himself back into society, but for whatever reason he can't get a job, so he has to resort to a life of crime. We see him at the beginning, he's working with certain criminals, and they have this app that tells them where the scope for criminal activity is so they can perform these crimes and get paid for it. So Caleb is kind of struggling to find out who he is and define his own purpose. We find out later he has to look after a mother who's very ill, and also that he's going to various therapy sessions, and he has this voice program that kind of is in touch with a previous ex-marine that he used to work with. So he's really kind of struggling to banish his own demons, and he's full of self-torment, and he's trying to find out who he is. So we later on find out that he has a bond with Dolores, and that's kind of the connection that we're going for throughout the whole season. He identifies with Dolores, who for some reason thinks he's the one that she can work with, and they later on begin on a quest to uncover the secrets of Insight and Rheoboam, and that's what Dolores wants to fulfill her objective. Serac, of course, is trying to gain control of the Delos Park, as we realised before, and he has a quest later on to find out Dolores is and stop her in her tracks. We get a backstory, a bit of why he created Rheoboam, and it's essentially his experience was the part that he was prone to this massive war-like event that saw, I think, a lot of his city or his country destroyed. So he worked together with his brother to create this artificial intelligence so they can much more control society to make sure it would resume in a peaceful state. But he turns out to be much more of a ruthless, remorseless character on here. We get some discovery that the system can identify which people potentially dangerous to the system. I think it's called outliers, I believe, and they find out that his brother was one of these outliers, or potentially could be one of these outliers, so he puts him in some sort of secluded environment to keep him safe on here. And he later on took out the father of Liam to gain control of this program on here. So that in a nutshell is the kind of setup that we have over the main story going on within Westworld. So what was good about it, as we expected with HBO productions, the visuals and the cinematography and the shots of the city and the futuristic world were all spot on. They were all fantastic on it. Great stunning shots of what the world was like outside of the Delos Park, and this seemingly added a fresh narrative to the show, because in the previous seasons we were rooted primarily to the Wild West setting and the feudal Japan. We had a couple of episodes in season 2, so it was kind of a novel approach for the writers to kind of branch out into the actual society. We could actually see the humans, if you like, and the life that they would lead. So from a visual aesthetic, it was great to look at. I do know that they did film some scenes in Singapore to get that really futuristic outlook and futuristic design on here, and it all looks fabulous, it all looks great. The music as well, again, lots of synthesized tones on here, works well in tandem with the action and the set pieces that we have on it. Some of them were choreographed really well. Altogether, the kind of exterior of the city and the landscape all looked fantastic. The various ships and the robots and the cyborgs that we see throughout on here looks very good. The design of Rheoboam, and we had various shots, if you like, of the system working out where the dangers or the potential outliers are throughout the world. It was all very well put together, very sophisticated, very composed, and very well done on here. So that was mainly the good points about it. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of negatives that we have to go on here. or my main negative is that there was a real lack of focus, a real lack of compelling character that you could really latch on and root for and cheer for on here. We have Dolores, seemingly the antagonist of this season. She seemingly wants to destroy society or reset society. It was never clear really what she wanted to do. We see her going out, she almost has this kind of Terminator like persona. She's just taking people out left, right and centre. She's singly focused on her mission or her goal. Now, unfortunately, that builds a really disconnect with her because we can't really sympathise or empathise with her as we kind of did in season 1 and season 2, because there's no real rhyme or reason of what she's doing. She never really takes pause to reflect on what she wants to do, why she wants to do it, and we can never really understand, why she really wants to destroy society until we get a revelation at the very end, which I never really understood, because it turns out that she doesn't want to destroy society. She wants humanity to make that choice for itself, either to choose a life that it currently sits in or destroy it all. So again, just not very clear or convincing purpose behind Dolores or her character. I could say the same for Bernard. Now, he was one of the most compelling characters within season 1. I know he was a fan favourite amongst many viewers because he was really that human perspective. In season 1, he was kind of working within the Delos Park and he was confused because of all the secrets and the conspiracies going on behind the Delos Park. So he was kind of the viewer's perspective, if you like. So we could very much empathise with Bernard in season 1. But in season 2, he kind of really has this disorientated look about him, confused. They couldn't really find a real place for Bernard this season, even though it seemed preset. He was there to stop Dolores, so we would see him play a prominent part, but he's at a distance for a lot of the season. We don't really know where he's going or what he's doing. He seemingly is in control of himself, but we later on find out that Dolores is in control of him, and then he kind of regains control. Didn't really know what he was doing, and it seemed like a really on the periphery of events, and it's a waste of a talent of an actor of Jeffrey Wright that you can't really utilise his character or find a main purpose for him. There was potential as he links up with Stubbs, played by Liam Hemsworth, who was one of the operatives of the Delos team in season 1, but then we find out that he's a host, so Bernard connects with him and uses him to help him try to stop Dolores throughout the season. But again, any potential chemistry between them two, we don't really see enough. So he kind of again is a character very much on the fringe of things. We have Maeve, who her main motivation is to reconnect with her daughter, and we see that Serac brokers a deal with her. If she finds Dolores and hunts her down to get the host data, then he'll create a world where she can live out her days with her daughter. Now, I was never convinced of that because we have Medita host being, so Maeve on this ending quest to reconnect to her daughter is a false motivation, right? Because it's not really true. She doesn't really have a daughter. It's a false memory implanted into her. So again, that was never convincing, and there was not real depth to Maeve. She was kind of just there just to hunt Dolores down. We had the introduction earlier on where she's battling the soldiers in World War II. Now, in the beginning, this was fine because it's just introducing us to where Maeve had been. But overall, they kept repeating the beat, and we wasted an episode, I think it was season 2 or 3, where we spent a lot of episode this Maeve just fighting soldiers again and again, having this relationship with, I think it's Rodrigo Santoro again. That never really worked because we know that's not a real relationship. So again, it was just repetitive beats for Maeve. They really didn't really know to take this character, where to move it forward. 1 minute she's with Dolores, then she's against her. She's under control of Dolores, but then she breaks free. So yeah, there was a real lack of central focus with Maeve as well. And I know she was another fan favourite, but I kind of felt her story was really done at the end of season 2, and there was no real reason to bring her back, but they did. But there was no real focus on her character. The same could also be said for William, who again had a really disorientated look about him, chaotic look. We found out that Hale coerces him to attends the main share of his company, and he ends up in a mental asylum, and we have scenes where he's kind of talking to previous versions of himself, from a child to the younger version to the older version to his father as well on there. Again, this just felt like filler to me, just not really important or not really critical to the plot overall. William is angry and really confused a lot of the time, and again, it just detaches you from the character. I also feel this character story was done at the end of the first season. I couldn't really see any rhyme or reason behind bringing him back. Despite the fact that Ed Harris is a great performance, I just couldn't really attach myself to William on here. This also goes the same for Charlotte Hale as well. So she was somebody who managed to break free of Dolores' control. Again, that was never really explained. They never really delved too much into how she was able to break free of Dolores' influence. They built on the fact that Charlotte Hale never cared about her son or her husband, but somehow the host was able to develop feelings, and this is kind of the trigger to have her come out of the control of Dolores. We had that episode, Pressed Pawn, I think, was supposedly the best episode, where we saw Charlotte Hale come under attack from the various drones, and Serac, as she was looking to escape. We had that explosive sequence in the truck that she was blown up with her family. She was trying to break free, and then that really distressing scene where we see her burnt and she was kind of recovered from the injuries on that, and that's when she kind of broke free and went in against Dolores later on in the season. So again, did we really need to bring back Charlotte Hale? I know they said that so she could come forward and take control and build more control of the host, but again, she just felt really redundant in this point, like a lot of the characters. And the main character I want to go to next is Caleb. He was meant to be the human perspective, but he spends a lot of the season just looking dazed and confused. We had that episode, Genre, I believe, where Liam had injected him with this substance, and he was experienced different type of music or movie experiences or theatrical experiences throughout this whole season, where they were involved in car chases. And again, that just felt like a waste. And the character himself throughout the whole season just didn't really know where he was or what he was doing. We were going through various sequences and dreams and memories, and he never really snapped out of the phase that he was in, and he was meant to be this critical and important character throughout, but we never really got that sense of importance throughout him, and it was really symbolic of the whole season. I just really couldn't get to grips with the story they were trying to tell. I also hated this idea that society, when it broke free of this artificial setup, the first instinct was to burn everything down. And I really hate the idea that just because you come out of a kind of ordered system, the first instinct is to kind of fall into chaos. Now, I know maybe this was writers kind of trying to build some sort of commentary on the current state of affairs or the previous set of affairs that we're in, but this just never really agreed with me, that everybody was rioting and protesting. What were they rioting about? What were they protesting about? The series never really delved too much into that on there, so there was a further disconnect there. So overall, a lot of the ideas just never worked for me, or the concepts, and the series as a whole just really lacked a compelling edge or compelling character that you could really latch onto to help you stay true or stay attentive to the season and build any sympathy or empathy with the character. So it was just really a lack of focus and an emptiness and a soullessness throughout the whole season that I really couldn't stay true to the season. I found myself tuning out a lot of the time and wondering who was fighting who was on whose side, who was trying to do what on here, and it never really just found a substantial base throughout the season. So if I had to give an overall score, I would give this season, unfortunately, a 5.6 out of 10. The visuals are great, the production were high, the standard, the music, everything was great as what you would expect, but unfortunately there was a real disconnect and characterization with the main characters involved, and there was a lack of dramatic experience, dramatic action and compelling edge, which I think was sad, because I think initially the trailers, I felt we were going to get a lot more of that, a lot more focus and a lot more compelling edge to this season, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. So we had a couple of end credits at the end of the season involving the fact that William is seemingly coming to his demise, and there's going to be a host version that's going to be working together with Charlotte Hale to construct a whole new band of hosts who are seemingly going to take over the world in season 4. We also had Bernard coming out of a device he'd entered to some sort of sublime universe to get further answers into what's going on with the society, and he snaps out of it at the end. So we see what's going to go ahead with him going forward. So season 4, whenever it completes, I assume we'll have a complete different outlook and take on what's going on. That might be good as well for the season, so we will kind of wipe the slate clean and start again. I'm not sure whether Caleb's character will return for season 4. I do feel that's a character, if they wanted to, they could kind of just kill off and start again. I'm still of the belief that when we come to the series end, that this will all turn out to be some sort of future simulation or some sort of recreated simulation, and we'll find out that the hosts are still under control at the end. That's what I think the twist will be, but we'll wait and see what happens there going forward. We may see, as some speculation arises, that we get a reduced amount of episodes. This season was 8 episodes, season 1 and season 2 had 10, so we may get a reduced amount going forward for season 4, but we wait and see. It's kind of difficult to confirm what speculation due to the current crisis, get confirmation as to when they will start film in season 4, so we'll just have to wait and see for any further updates that we get on here. So that's my overall review on Westworld season 3. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy this season? Did you think it was an improvement on season 1 and 2, or did you think it was a regression and you'd like to see a reverting back to the more ideological and philosophical subject matter that we got in season 1 going forward for season 4? Would you like to see most of the characters come back for season 4? I actually wouldn't mind if we kind of got an overhaul, because I think a lot of the characters, whether it's Dolores, Maeve, William, their story really is kind of done, so I wouldn't be too adverse to seeing a whole host of new characters going forward for season 4. That could be what's needed to kind of reinvigorate the series and give it a new freshness and a new energy going forward. But let me know what you think in the comments below, what you thought about this season overall. That's my thoughts on this season 3 for Westworld. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, take care for now, and I will see you very, very soon.